Good afternoon, Kevin. Thanks for meeting me to talk about schools and education in North East Somerset. I suppose my first question is that we're hearing from our local MP and from the Conservatives that schools have got more money now than they've had in the past, that budgets are fine, everything's okay. But on the other hand, I'm hearing from teachers and from governors and from parents that actually budgets are squeezed and they're actually losing staff. I'd be interested to hear your views on this contradiction, because that's two different stories.
Yes, well, I think that where we're at the moment, colleagues seem to be extremely angry, they're extremely frustrated because their voice is not being heard. We have spent hours seemingly talking to local MPs before the election was called, and they seem to acknowledge the state of school funding. The current catchphrase of the Conservatives, that's stable and strong leadership, which they seem to just be espousing everywhere, and just focusing on Brexit, that seems to be hijacking all the agenda. And what we're concerned and extremely worried about is the fact that strong and stable leadership did nothing for those on the Titanic. What they needed was insight. What they needed was understanding to see where the dangers were, and the cuts they're making are causing all the problems that are now building up like a pressure cooker, and schools are at crisis point. They seemingly don't hear when both school leaders and both parents now, thankfully, who are getting onto the campaign as well and understanding the situation in local communities, realise that we've been in austerity since 2010. As a head of a local school, I know that to cut staff, not replace staff, because we were in a situation where we had to lose some funding by 2015. We assumed that after that time schools would be looked at again, reviewed, and actually hopefully reverse the funding cuts and start to implement things that we need. What we the government, what gets under our skin and what is extremely excruciating is when they say phrases that are meaningless. So if they say we're spending the most ever on schools at the moment, well, yes you are, because actually pupil numbers are growing, and if you're funding pupils per pupil, you are going to be spending more than ever. But sadly what they don't say is that costs are rising even faster. So we have national insurance, we have pensions, we have apprenticeship levies going through, and all these things, and cuts to education services grants, meaning that the money is being cut. Now, even independent bodies such as the National Audit Office, which says by 2020 schools are going to have 8% real cuts, they just don't seem to understand that or communicate or want to discuss it. That's what really annoys and frustrates colleagues. And they've been given the soul destroying task of trying to manage and implement these cuts, which is our children and the future of our country now. And it's not a case of, oh well, how do we get around this? There are only certain things you can cut in a school. And we pared back everything we possibly could in the first round of austerity cuts since 2010. So we looked at the obvious things. We looked at where we could possibly stop running water, keep all the lights off, don't replace hardware like computers. And some of the computers are totally out of date and inappropriate now, but you just don't have that is the least of your concerns. You're concerned about the teachers who are going to teach your children. And so that's where the money should be focused. And then, again, because they don't wish to engage in a debate, we thought we had, when we spoke to the local MPs, engaged in an objective debate. Nothing political, just objectively going through the facts of where we're at. Because, to be honest, if any government is going to listen and do the job for schools that we need to be done, then that's fantastic. So we set out all the facts as we're given now. And we said to them, look, what we need is support now so that we can actually start to put back into the system some of the things that we can avoid cutting, because once they're cut, when you've lost a teacher,
Yeah.
you have to train a new teacher, you have to, if you're lucky enough to get more funding, put them into the school, you have to train them in the school system, you have to make sure they understand, and so on. It becomes something that's not a short-term fix. You can't go out to Wickes and buy a paintbrush and say, there we are, we've put the cuts back.
Yeah.
And on top of all that the heads are trying to manage with their budget is the indirect cuts. So we're losing things like health services to schools,
Yeah.
and the Conservatives say, well, let's put in a mental health nurse in every school. But what's the point in identifying somebody who needs support if there's no money or funding to give those children the support they then need?
Yeah.
So currently, the knock-on crisis is not only causing all those services to be cut, but also is causing a situation where we're having knock-on effects on workload and stress of staff who are already there in
Yeah.
post, trying to do more with less.
Yeah.
Now, what gets us when we try to talk about it objectively, and again, purely objectively, is there a choice in this? And there seems to be, because the Conservative Party had some money and they had choices to make.
Yeah.
They decided that they would put money into structural changes which were things that they wanted to see. So, academisation to continue, even if it was through the back door by no pressure, but because of the cuts in local authority services, it happened.
Yeah.
There was money for free schools in areas where actually there is no spare capacity. We don't
Yeah.
need free schools. And then they carried on with grammar schools.
Yeah.
Well, all these are structural changes. You can build and do structural changes in any shape or form in education. But surely, at a time when we all agree that money is tight, where would you want to put the money?
Yeah.
You would want to put money at the front line with those teachers and those staff that are looking after the children now in the classroom at this moment in time.
Yeah.
So if you've got a favourite idea, great, but put it on hold when things are more important and prioritise. Because there's only one chance for the children now, and there's only one chance for their future now.
Thank you. You mentioned, and as I said, I'm married to a teacher, so I see the amount of work that comes home in planning and preparation, marking and the rest. And I also hear about the stress and on the staff teams. Are you worried as a head teacher about retention of experienced staff? Because if it's difficult to get a new teacher, it's doubly difficult to get a new experienced teacher.
Yes, and I'm particularly worried from the point of view where we are with the National Association of Head Teachers, looking at heads, for example. Just look at that sort of cohort of where I was, because I just retired at Christmas. There is a lot of experienced heads who are saying to me now, I can't juggle anymore. I have had enough of trying to juggle and the stress of it with nothing to go, nothing positive around me. I can't carry on, and I've had enough. I'm going to go. Now, that's happening at all levels because there's more and more pressure put because we're in a high stakes accountability structure. The government has put such pressure on schools to perform with getting resources less and less and less. And people are saying, but how can we do that? And so you're losing those people, and there's nobody there to help them, to induct them, to understand what is important in the system and all those lessons learnt over the years.
Yeah. Thank you. That's really interesting. Thank you for your time.
Not at all.
Yes.